Hi, welcome all to episode 2 of the Middle-earth In Mercia podcast. Hi everyone, I'm just sneaking in from the post-edit. You may find for the first 6 minutes of the podcast that the audio quality on my voice is a bit lower than you would expect. This is because, like a genius, I left my microphone sat on the desk rather than pinned to myself. However, it is only for the first section of the podcast. If you don't feel you can listen to it and enjoy it, I recommend just skipping to the next section, the main body, 6 minutes ahead, and then the quality returns to its usual standard for the remainder of the over hour of the podcast. Thank you for your understanding. Hello everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Middle-earth In Mercia podcast. I'm your host Sonny, and I'm welcome back today with my friend and co-host Chris.
Hello, nice to see you all again.
So basically we had a great reception to episode 1. I have put out a brief thank you, like 10-minuter, just saying thank you to everyone for their support, so I won't go into it in too much detail. But Chris, I don't think you've really had an opportunity to see stats and things, but we've easily had like well over 100 listens cumulative, and like IP addresses and stuff. Like at least 50 people have listened to it and stuff. So I've been completely blown away by the reception. Really, we've had people from all over the world, from Canada to Australia, all over Europe. It's been great, really.
Oh, it was really wonderful to hear. I wasn't sure that anyone would listen to it. So that's fantastic. And thank you for everyone who did listen and has tuned in again. And I hope you keep enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, it was far and away better than my wildest dreams, really. I was hoping for like 10. 10 would have been great.
Yeah, so. that would have been enough. But 100 is fantastic.
Yeah, to get like at least 5 times that in unique listeners is awesome. So yeah, thank you everyone. It's been a great motivator to sit down once again, learn from the lessons of the first one, and hopefully this one's going to be bigger and better. And hopefully you'll stick around. So thanks again. Moving on from that, we might as well go into sort of like the communications we've had from people, Chris.
Yeah, you said that some people had been in touch. I haven't seen any of the messages, so it'd be really nice to see what people have had to say.
So I have read all of these, and I've given people a bit of a little message back. But it'll be the first time Chris has heard them, and I've told most people that we were gonna directly reply on here. So yeah, this was a message I got on YouTube, Chris.
Okay.
Which is very kind to us. And he has joined the Ardacon team.
Oh, wonderful.
But yeah, I just thought I'd read it out so you can hear it. So this is from Tom, who messaged me on Facebook. He says, "Listen to the podcast. Was a good listen. You both have the right kind of voice for podcasting," which I thought was very flattering.
Oh, well, that's good.
I mean, I still haven't gotten used to hearing my own voice. So.
No, I mean, I remember the first time I heard my voice recorded, I thought, oh, God, I've got a really quite substantial accent, which I didn't think I had. So, yeah, but I got used to that, so it's fine now. Yeah.
So, looking forward to hearing some things from a newer player's perspective. And will be good for a couple of friends of mine just getting into the game. We've already argued about the Harad Raider and Serpent Rider, which is an ongoing topic.
Yeah, well, we'll have to keep playtesting that and see what we think.
Yeah, definitely. My friend had his very first tournament at Arda last year. Really enjoyed the doubles and Chaos in Arda, which is, the fun tournament on the Friday I told you about. Yeah. And warm-up games, and won one of his games in the singles. Never played any wargaming before, thanks for the content. And he then went on to tell us a few of them play in the North Oxfordshire area near Banbury. They've got a couple of small venues down there that host the odd one-day event. And that it's obviously not too far from us here in Coventry.
Yeah, well, I'll have to look into that because it's a nice day trip down there, isn't it? It's about less than an hour's drive to Banbury.
It's not too far. I've been in contact with him and talking about.
Thank you, Tom. That's very kind. Look forward to meeting you.
Yeah. So this one was from Tim on Facebook, who posted on one of my sort of advertising posts,
Oh, excellent.
saying it was good. No need to spend the first 10 minutes warning us off, though.
Oh, I see, yeah.
That was me.
Well, I think, it's good to have some self-flagellation at the start and just, obviously set out some of the good work other people have been doing. But, yeah, I can understand that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit self-conscious doing this, to be honest. But, people saying such nice things as, like, give me a little bit of confidence.
Oh, well, excellent.
Do more in earnest. Yeah, he says listening to folks getting into a new facet of gaming is always interesting. It's going to be interesting hearing how you all go from playing in a small group to games outside of that. I'm wondering what rules or interactions you may find you've misinterpreted for so long. I can remember going to an early tournament thinking, oh no, I've done that all wrong all year.
Oh yeah, well I'm sure we can report back at great length when we've been to the tournament and tell you all about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm certain there's gonna be quite a few.
Sure, there'll be some of that. Yeah.
But yeah, that's why we're going to try and do some warm-up events. Isn't it?
Do you think we worked out a lot of the early misinterpretations, and we're pretty on it?
We're pretty experienced at making mistakes.
Yes, we've made plenty of mistakes and argued long and hard over them and worked it out for once and for all. So I think that will help us. But I think there will be, I'm sure that, as he says, as Tim says, there will be some parts we're not so sure on.
Thank you, Tim, for that message.
Yeah, thank you.
And then on to our first bit of mail, which I was very excited to receive.
Oh, okay.
So if anyone's not aware, because I think I did sneak it in at the end of the last episode, we do have an email address, which is just middleearthinmercia@gmail.com. And if you've got any questions, any ideas, anything like that, please write to us. Really enjoyed receiving this one. So here we go, Chris. So this is from Rich. Started listening to your podcast, and it's great to hear new stuff being put out there. You all come across well, and the first episode was a good listen. I'm from the East Midlands, and I've recently just started playing again, so this podcast was a good one. I play at 7th City Collectibles, and it has a really big following in Middle-earth strategy battle game, in case you wanted any games for your warm-ups before the tournament. Anyway, just thought I'd email to say good work and look forward to hearing more.
Oh, that's a very nice message from Rich. Thank you, Rich. And we'll certainly have to venture over there when we get a chance and have a game. Yeah,
and an excellent first email. So thank you for that, Rich. And we'll be sure to check out 7th City Collectibles and see how far away that is. I mean, if you're in the East Midlands, that should definitely be travelable from where we are. So now we've done our introduction and caught up with our correspondence, onto our main body of topics. Chris, simply put, what have you been up to in the hobby in the last 2 weeks?
Oh, in the last 2 weeks? Well, I've been keeping an eye on the Haradrim, and I've in terms of our project, I suppose, narrowly, I've got a little story to tell the audience, actually. I've had some good fortune, some bad fortune, but then good fortune. So, one of the issues with the list that we had was I needed to buy the ring wraith, but it only now comes in a box of 3. And I thought, okay, that's fine, I can use the other ring wraiths, but it's £48. And I thought, oh, okay, well, this is a bit of a hit, but I'll go for it. And I ordered it, very excited, waiting eagerly. It arrived, opened it up, and then, to my horror, I realised that actually the parts were slightly wrong. And given that we only needed the Betrayer for this army, the one model that was missing was the Betrayer on foot. And I had an extra most of a Knight of Umbar mounted instead. But I know that you'd said Games Workshop's customer service was very good, so I thought, all right, well, I'll just send them an email, I'll take a photo, put the order number in, send it off, hopefully they'll sort it out. And I said, I can pop this extra bit in Games Workshop or what have you. Anyway, had an auto reply, going to be a few days, they're very busy, and sure enough, it took a few days. But then I got a response, and they said, oh, well, thank you for your email, very sorry to see that this has happened. You in a way, you'd have thought someone had died, but it was actually just, they couldn't have been sorrier, so that was really nice, I suppose. And then she said, oh, well, since you sent the order number and the photo, we'll actually just send you a replacement. And so I actually ended up with basically 2 boxes, minus that Betrayer figure, and that was really nice. So after that good piece of luck, I've cut most of the flash off. Well, I cut all the flash off the Betrayer, and on foot and on horse, and I've got them undercoated, ready to paint. And I've also, at the same time, I bought a box of Harrigan Raiders, so I've put those together and tried to convert them a little bit to maximise the number of lances we've got. So yeah, that's kind of where I've got to with all that. But I have been distracted, and I will give a shout out to Ragnarok Miniatures, which is the very great sculptor Colin Patton. And we both actually have some of his dwarfs that he painted, well, he sculpted a few years ago now, but he's actually recently done a series of Kickstarters. He's able to now cast his own models. He's bought a very nice casting machine using the money from Kickstarter. And he's got a really nice family business set up there, and he launched the website a few weeks ago. And I'm not really into Kickstarter, but I thought, yeah, I really want those models. So I've actually been doing a kind of Chaos Dwarf Force as well.
Yeah, that's quite cool. He's a sculptor and he's got his own production.
Yeah, because with some of these sculptors, they sometimes will retain the copyright essentially and be able to produce them themselves. But many of them will sculpt commission, and then another company will have the rights of production, and so it doesn't all stay under one roof. But it's really nice to see that he's been able to do that. Yeah.
So that's your hobby.
That's my hobby.
Hobby roundup.
Yeah. How about you, Sonny? What have you been doing?
I've been pretty busy, to be honest. So since it's not all that long ago we bought the tickets, really, is it? It's about a month since we bought the doubles tickets, and about 2.5 weeks since we got the Ardacon ticket. And since both of them, I've just been having nightmares about turning up to the tournament with unpainted miniatures. I've been, I'm quite good at getting a project done, but just never as quickly as I would like. I've been really, really going at it. So what have I done? So I've been scouring eBay, firstly, to try and cut the budget on this project, which, if you don't use eBay, if you're willing to buy a bit of Dettol or your stripper of choice, is a great way to sort of cut down the cost of the hobby. I managed to source 2 Serpent Riders that were in reasonable condition, missing some backpacks, which I'm going to work on, for about 2/3 of the cost of the ones from Games Workshop, and they're metal, which I quite like. And then I've managed to get hold of 23 Harridan, Warriors on the cheap, from eBay. So I've stripped all the Serpent Riders, and then I've done all the mould lines and undercoated the Harridan. I have got 3 Watchers of Kana painted up. I've got 3 of the Chunky Lads, 6 of the Abercan Guard Darton. Absolutely love them. I really enjoyed painting them as well.
Yeah, that'll be a good scary battle line.
Yeah, I can't wait to get them out there. And then I've got 4 Harridan Spearmen done. I've started work on my King on foot. I've started work on the Serpent Guard on foot, and I've got 4 Bowmen that are work in progress. So I think at the last count where I looked, we've got about 25 models each, and admittedly a lot of them are cavalry, so I've still got them to do, and I've still got the heroes to do. But I think overall I'm roughly about the halfway point in terms of model count.
Yeah, very good.
For battle ready, that is. I'm going to get them all battle ready, get them on the bases, and then I'm going to do the highlighting. But I have already done all the bases. I did them in one big session, but you...
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, the listeners won't be able to see them, and perhaps we'll get a photo arranged, but they do look very good. Sonny's really pulled all the stops out for them.
And Chris has sort of subcontracted me to make his bases as well.
Yes, I've very kindly donated my bases to Sonny, so he can continue his masterwork.
He's been, I don't know, maybe possibly slyly generous to me over the years. So I'm having to do it for free as well.
That's what you need to do. Build up your debts early and then claim them later in life.
Excellent. Yeah. So good progress on all of that. Really, I've quite enjoyed it as well. One thing I will say is I think I had a bit of rose tinted glasses a little bit from the last time when I painted these models.
Yes.
I do enjoy the end product. I love how the sculpts look, but I had completely forgotten that, for instance, I'll show you this one right here.
So just looking at one of the Harridan Bowmen.
Harridan Bowmen, where they're sort of like, he's reaching back for an arrow. Where does the arrow begin? Where does the hand end? Nobody knows.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think there's some and I found that with the Rohan basic troops as well, particularly with the cloaks. as you say, and then round the hands. Oh yeah, that's a particularly terrible example.
Yeah.
I have to say.
And it had a really big mould line on it as well. And I was just like, I don't know whether I'm deleting detail here.
Yeah, it's really... Yeah, and I do think that is a problem with them. I mean, it does make them quicker to paint. The fact that that's the trade-off, isn't it? That you end up with some of those little areas where it's not as distinct as it might be. I mean, I would say that... I mean, I'm guessing these are hand sculpted originally.
Yeah.
And perhaps you wouldn't get that on one of the modern...
They're digital ones.
Sculpted.
They are a lot. They are a lot cleaner. I mean, when
there's something about the character of them that's different, isn't
there?
There is, and there's sometimes the face isn't quite right.
It is it's a bit of a trade-off, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's just trade-offs.
And the only other thing I would say is that this is going to be going to a topic a little bit of manufacturing. So I don't think I've mentioned it before, but I work in engineering, so I'm quite familiar with manufacturing processes. Some of the casting molds that they've used for the metal models are obviously getting quite old.
Yes.
So if you don't know how casting typically works, you generally pour a liquid material into your cast, which can be it can be any number of things. It could even be sand. It could be various metals and so on. But each time you make a cast, you generally lose a little bit of material of that cast and of the mold. And the longer time goes on, the more wear you get on those molds.
Yeah.
And
so there's a benefit in buying models early because you're getting them when the mold's fresh. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the main ways that translates on metal models in particular is you get more severe mold lines. And yeah, the Ardacon guard, more or less fine, absolutely fine, really. And also quite easy models to clean up. But my serpent guard were awful. I was telling Chris just before we started recording. They actually made me stop painting the model because I thought I'd cleaned them up, and then I just found more, and I'd already spent a long time cleaning up the overspill on them. The Watchers of Karna were not as bad, but just because of the way the models were a little bit more difficult to clean up. And my Haradim, because I bought them on eBay, I don't know when they were actually made, but whenever they were made, I don't know. It was a bad time for that mold.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's maybe not just an issue with Middle-earth there.
I mean, that's just a common issue.
Yeah, manufacturers going to use their mold until it's completely spent, isn't it?
And there's a cost to redoing the mold. So,
but yeah, I'm sure they do refresh them every now and then. But yeah, I just had a bit of that. Was the only fatiguing part in my sort of hobby adventures for the last 2 weeks. But everything else on the whole has been pretty good. But yeah, so that's our hobby roundup. And now I thought we could talk a little bit about our practice game, Chris.
Yeah, we had a practice game, what was it, a couple weeks ago now?
It was right after the recording.
Warmer climes abroad, but he's returned, looking more tanned.
The Cypriots kicked me out.
Yeah.
They said if I stayed any longer, there would be famine and drought.
Well, yeah, so we had a game before you went away, didn't we? So...
yeah, it was right after we recorded episode 1.
Yes, that's right.
Which was so we sort of tend to have our own styles in our army selection, and I specifically chose one which was sort of more in line with what I've seen played at tournaments on the released tournament list. So it was an elite focus list, utilising Lurtz and Saruman, which I don't know whether that's a typical combination, but I was also working with the models I had. And then Chris was using a bit more sort of a... not quite horde, because they were Ministeriff, so they weren't cheap, but a horde-ish Ministeriff list.
Yeah, so I think I had a king of men on a horse.
Which is always a good choice.
Yeah, and with a lance. And then he had possibly 10 or more Ministeriff riders with him. Certainly at least 10, I think. And then I had some Citadel Guard with bows and a couple of guards of the Fountain Court for fight skill. And then the rest Ministeriff warriors. And it was a pretty sizable force, I suppose, compared to yours. So yeah, there was a horde aspect to it. So
I have to hold my hands up here, I should have looked this up before the game, but I forget what scenario we were playing, but essentially the objective was to take the centre ground, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was hold the centre or something to that effect. And yeah, the game ends at a certain point when on the roll of a dice. So there was a bit of a timing issue as to when you took it when you needed to hold it.
And it was a pretty informative game, really. It was a close victory in the end, but if we'd been playing to time limits, it would have been quite a significant victory for Chris. We sort of played it to the end, which is the style we've done before.
Yeah, we played to the bitter death.
I think the game probably took about 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
So if we had ended an hour and a half, an hour 45, 2 hours, it would have been a very, very clear victory for Chris. And all of that came down to really a miscalculation on my part in terms of positioning.
Yeah.
I had some crossbows, I had Saruman, I wanted to make use of them, I wanted to deal you a blow, and then I was going to break through. And I'd never really dealt you a significant blow. As time went on, I did a good job of killing you, but then I was completely out of position, and I couldn't regain the position quickly enough.
I'd sort of managed to avoid coming into your line of sight of Saruman until quite late. But when I did, I was able to sort of bottle you in, so it was quite hard for you to get through to the objective. And it sort of became a bit of a slog, didn't it? For you to just try and break through my line.
And I think
you did, but it was sort of too late, really. And I think perhaps needed to move earlier for the centre. I don't know. Yeah,
I think it was good learning on both sides, because I did manage to do a couple of
I had some tactical
good tricks
lessons
with Saruman.
I had to learn, for sure. So yeah, I mean, why don't you tell the listeners about the damage to my horseman from Saruman?
Yeah, so obviously one thing that Saruman or Gandalf or any of the wizards that have got Sorcerer's Blast really are excellent at doing is removing riders from their horses. And yeah, this
don't line them up for your enemy. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and this is definitely one we will have to check with tournament organisers and more experienced players to check we've interpreted it correctly. But obviously, the moving model ceases to move as soon as it meets another model. And the way Chris had lined up his riders was that I met 2 riders simultaneously. So I think 1 was killed, but most importantly, 3 riders at minimum. I think the dead rider and then 2 riders were removed from their horses, and that was obviously a pretty devastating blow.
Yeah, because these were cavalry I was sort of sending round for a rear attack, and had been hiding behind, I think, a sort of house of Rohan, and hoping to pop round and charge the rear of Sonny's line, but Saruman got popped out and put an end to that quite swiftly, really.
I think the last time we played Isengard, this is probably quite old news to everybody else. Very old news, in fact. But the last time we played Lurtz was the old edition.
That's true, actually.
So this is about 3 years ago at minimum. But yeah, so I'm quite slow on the update. But I love how much of a beast Lurtz is.
It always felt like he wasn't quite strong enough, so I'm happy with that.
He's an absolute beat stick now with 3 points of might. I think he gets 3 attacks. Was it 3 wounds as well?
I'd have to check, but it certainly felt stronger than
absolutely fantastic. Yeah, great. I really enjoyed playing with him. Just an absolute animal going around killing things.
Absolutely.
But definitely a good introduction. I think that's only our second practice game since we decided to go to the tournaments. They say you learn more in defeat, so I'm going to call myself the true winner there.
Absolutely, I'm sure you would.
Okay, so that moves us on really to sort of talk about the thoughts we're having on our Harad list and what we're building. So at the moment, really, Chris, we have the Ringwraith, which we wanted. We've got Suladan. We've got 2 Serpent Riders. We've got 6 Haradin Raiders, and then a great deal of Haradin Warriors, which we can distribute however we best see fit. Now, for me, I've been listening to quite a few podcasts and things to try and speed up the relearning process, and also thinking on our games, and with the other guys, I'm still teaching them, so seeing them learn lessons has been helpful. Yeah, the debate for me really is, I'm happy with our heroes and the method and methodology we've got behind them, especially the Haradin King. I think he's good.
Yes.
I can't remember what we decided for your secondary hero. Do you remember what that was going to be?
That is a good question.
Was it just going to be a Haradin chieftain?
I think it was nothing particular, was it?
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. So I'm more or less happy with those choices, because ideally I think we have the Ringwraith as the leader all the time, unless it's Contest of Champions, although we don't always get to choose in the doubles. And then we can use Suladan as, like an expendable missile.
Yes.
along with the king and anyone else we deem expendable.
Yeah, I mean, and I think in our other practice game we had, I think Suladan felt vulnerable in a way, so you wouldn't necessarily want him as your leader for that reason.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But then the debate comes of how are we going to balance in terms of, like, for instance, we're talking about at least 20 bows. And with the full rerolls on the ring wraith for wounding, I think that could be, like, say we came up against hobbits. I mean, that's going to be a scene. There's going to be a horrible slaughter with that many bows. But say we come up against the Minister of Shield Wall, who are getting the defense 7, or we come up against dwarves, that is going to be quite weak. And then we're going to be falling back on our lances, who are our can openers, reliable can openers. But then we get into another debate of Serpent Riders versus Raiders, because their major difference really is the fight skill of 3 and 4. 4 puts us on even footing with dwarves and other elites.
Yes.
But is wasted points, say we come up against elves.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of why I've been playing with the Minas Tirith Riders, because they are fight skill 3, or the Knights of Minas Tirith.
You can really hoard them up, yeah.
And it's that similar thing. And I've played with Dolan Roth Knights before, and I think the trade-off with the fight skill is you just get the numbers, don't you? That's the bottom line. And if you can try and just get a few charges off, you should be able to do something. But it's nice to have a bit of fight skill mixed in. I think you want a couple of Serpent Guard maybe, but I wouldn't want to go all Serpent Guard.
I agree with that, because I think that the two combinations we could use the Serpent Guard and the Raiders is if we are going up against elite, then might as well just send the Raiders in. They can be the first wave, wear them down, and then we've got the Serpent Riders, who I believe have slightly better courage, but I may be mistaken on that, so don't take my word. But we'll assume they do for the time being, and then they can be there for the late game. And if we're facing, say, a Minister of Shield Wall that is on fight skills 3, then we make sure the Serpent Riders are in that first wave. Yeah. We win those combats we need to win. So yeah, I definitely think there's a mix. It's just, where does the mix lie? And the other thing I'm thinking is, I don't think we want too many spearmen, to be honest. But another option I was also thinking was maybe we go bows and spears. Because
combined?
Yeah. I think we could get some spears we could stick onto the bowmen.
Yeah, and I've actually got some bows spare from the cavalry that we could use to stick on the spearmen.
Because, I just feel like a spearman without a bow is a wasted infantry, really. Because we don't want to put the bows on the cavalry, because we don't want to make them even more of a target than they already are. We don't want to limit their movement. But I'm thinking that we place our gun line, as it were, in a position we want to hold or we want to delay. Yeah. And then we'd do as much damage with the bows, admittedly, but we're going to do our killing blow with our cavalry, always. And I'm just thinking, with just a spearman standing there, he's not achieving anything. He's not drawing them in. No. He's not being a threat. He's just waiting for that opportunity to be a spearman. And
that's a very good point, actually. And I think, I'm inclined to agree, because ultimately, with the Haradrim, if you think about your classic cavalry, infantry, and bowmen. The infantry is the soft bit with Haradrim. So what our list's been sort of thinking about doing is trying to lean into the cavalry and the archer side of it and create some mobility in that way. But you're not necessarily going to have a really sturdy battle line to hold a particular position. Yeah. But you can push and dictate the movement more. And I think, your suggestion really would aid that and strengthen that strategy.
What got me thinking along those lines is, obviously, I want the 6 Ardacon Guard. Probably want at least 2 Watchers of Karna, just because they come in packs of 3 and 2 of them have the dual swords.
Oh yes.
I don't think the third one with a bow is particularly worth it. It's those 2 attacks for such cheap. So that gives me 8 infantry off the bat, and I don't want to pay for 6 spears to optimize them. So I'm thinking, maybe 10 bowmen with spears. Yeah. Would work.
Well, so the only thing I would say to sort of counter this is that's what I tried with an elf army. And the problem I found was you end up doing neither very well, because if you end up wanting to use them as spearmen, you're losing movement, or you can't shoot at all depending on how far you move them. But if you do use them as bowmen, well, the spears don't do anything. So it's a problem. And it wasn't as effective as I thought it would be with the elves.
They are very expensive, though.
That is true. There's a lot of points to put in. So I think it was 12 points maybe for an elf with...
So I'll check quickly on Battlescribe, but I believe... So yeah, a Harridan warrior with a bow is 7 points. Harridan warrior with bow and spear is only 8 points.
Yes, okay.
So yeah, that's pretty affordable.
And it
really
makes them a bit more resilient if they do get attacked.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess.
Maybe we should still have a couple of spearmen knocking around, because I mean they're only 7 points. Because yeah, I do like when in the past in some of our practice games, one of the tactics I've employed is you tie up a powerful hero with one guy, and then obviously your big fear whenever you do that is that someone's going to call a heroic combat. They're going to kill that guy, and then they're going to move on and kill a load of other people, or they get the bonus movement. That's another strategy I've seen people use, is that when you want, because you can do your full move, and you don't necessarily need to move into combat.
Okay.
So you can just use it as bonus combat, bonus movement. But what I've been doing to Chris in a couple of our games is I tie up that powerful hero, and I did this to Tom as well when he was playing the Fellowship, and then I fire 8 bows into that combat.
Yes, that's a very good tactic. I like that. You
almost certainly kill your own guy because he's only defense 4, which nulls the combat. They can't do heroic combat. They can't even kill anyone. They've just got to stand there for the turn. And then hopefully you get 1, maybe 2 cheeky wounds on the hero.
Yeah,
or
I
make
have to say that was an annoying but very effective way of dealing with the heroes that we've not employed before. So yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from listeners whether that's something they've used and to what effect. And any war stories are welcome actually on that.
Yeah, and I think a couple of cheap spearmen, probably still in the force. So that's definitely something to consider. So yeah, I think that's all we've really got to discuss on the work in progress list. It's still very much work in progress. I'm very happy with our idea of it's the Betrayer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Betrayer with his re-roll on all wounds. I just think that's going to be in the right situation at the right time, deployed in the right way with lances. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to have to be very kind to people, though, if we ever do get that off.
Yeah.
Because try
and conceal our grins.
It's going to be a bad turn for somebody. But yeah, I'm sure the more experienced players will see that coming a mile off, and we're going to have to pull.
And I'm sure we'll also be on the receiving end of some equally
annoying
tactics.
There's a couple of matchups I do fear.
Which we shall not speak of.
No. People have got enough advantage upon us without us giving direct tips. So now, Chris, moving on to our Ardacon Prep. Obviously, that's our doubles list we've just been talking, which we're also going to use at Ardacon. But then at Ardacon, we've got the Chaos in Arda, which I haven't even begun thinking about, but from my understanding, it's sort of like a fun Friday night thing. So I think we can take pretty much anything to that. People have drinks, it's far more relaxed. And but on the Saturday, Sunday, we have the singles event / team event. Now, the way the team event works, for a refresh for Chris and for anyone that's not aware, is you team up with 8 other individuals forming a team of 9, and you can play the same lists and stuff, but you cannot replicate any named characters across that team. And the top 4 scorers in the individual event count as your team scores. So hopefully all of our teammates are better than us, Chris, and we get carried.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for.
Nicely up the board. Yeah. But we've got 6 people already, which I'm going to fill you in on. So yeah, we could sit in position 5 and 6, but maybe we'd all right. We'll see. Anyway, but you can't have any replications. So you can, for instance, one person can have Gandalf the Grey, and one person can have Gandalf the White, but you can't have, say, Gandalf the White in the... Oh no, he's not in the Vanquishers. But you can't have 2 Gandalf the Whites in the 2 lists. So there's a bit of negotiation. So we've had 2 lots of 2 people, 2 lads from Sweden.
Oh, excellent.
Which I think is quite cool. Like they're coming up. They're coming over from Sweden for the event. It shows how prestigious and a big deal it is. One of them, I believe, has won an open tournament event. So I said to him, yeah, you can join the team as long as you're willing to accept quite a few questions from us.
Yeah, most welcome. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
and he seemed cool with that. He seems like a nice lad. And then the two names slipped. Thomas, who's down from Banbury way, I think it was. It was Thomas. Yeah. So Tom from Banbury and his Banbury way, and his friend are the other two. So they're just on the Ardacon site. They said they were looking for people. And they've joined up. So
I think they definitely can make a case for being just about Mercian down in North Oxfordshire. I mean, that was certainly in the Mercian territory, wasn't it? Yeah.
I mean, being a Sussex man, my Mercian history isn't as good as it should be.
We should say to our Swedish friends that the colours of Mercia of yellow are the same as your flag. So it all works.
I've already filled him in on my Swedish connections as well. Yeah. Buttered him up. But no, they seem like a great group of lads. I sort of sent them all a message and said coordination in terms of what armies we're playing, so we don't have this replication, is the minimum. But it'd be nice if maybe we can all have a group Facebook call or something at some point, just introduce each other, and then we've got some people to talk to at the bar after the games, really. If they want to get involved with that, they don't. If they're a bit shy, then that's cool as well. Yeah. But anyway, so I have asked everybody on the Facebook group to submit their first and second choices.
Right.
Chris has sort of sat back a bit, I believe you said,
yes,
to wait for everyone to submit their choices so that you can
I'll just have whatever's left.
Pick the best of the rest.
Yes.
So myself up first. So I put Mordor first choice and Kingdom of Moria second.
And is it one of these and the second's just if there's a clash? Is that the
exactly?
idea?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So then the next one is Rivendell first. Rivendell allied with White Council and second Rohan. The next one we have is Easterling first, second Dead of Dunharrow. The next one is Isengard first and second Angmar. Ooh, people shocked at Angmar. If you're not aware, Chris, Angmar is like a list that people typically play, is very competitive.
It's a very tricksy list. Whenever I read the army list, I thought, that would be quite good fun, but it plays quite differently to a lot of the other factions, doesn't it? So,
and then people don't really like playing against it. So is that everyone? 1, 2...
I don't know if you said about the Corsair and Serpent.
Yes, okay. So that was Tom who wrote the podcast, so I don't think he'd mind us mentioning him. He said he's a bit of a Corsair and Serpent Horde
interesting.
Specialist. He really enjoys playing that. I can imagine what that's made up of. Yeah, so I did say to him, I don't know whether you would want to play Harridim or not, or whether you're Harridimmed out. For me, I think I'll be a bit Harridimmed out.
I'm quite happy to play Harridim if it works, but equally, if it's not going to work with that, I'll do something else.
Yeah, so those first choices there, really. So the only slight clash we've got is one chap wants to play Isengard, and then obviously we've got this person here that's talking about Rivendell and the White Council. And obviously Saruman is in both the White Council and Isengard.
Yes. Okay, so
but I think I need to have a chat with him, but I think with the spellcasters you've got in Rivendell, the spellcasters you've got in White Council, unless Saruman was absolutely key to it, hopefully there should be room for a negotiation there.
Yeah, I can see that it's maybe easier to take it out of the Rivendell and White Council list.
And at the same time, need to talk to him about the Isengard list, because maybe he wants to play Assault on Helm's Deep. Legendary Legion, which doesn't have Saruman in.
Yeah, that's true.
So once I've spoken to you tonight, I'll get back on there and message them. Yeah. So really, out of those first choices, then Chris, there's Mordor, Rivendell and White Council, Easterlings, Isengard, and Serpent Horde and Corsair. So that leaves a lot of open armies.
Yeah, I could go for Khazad-dûm or something, couldn't I? Maybe
could do Khazad-dûm. You've got Durin, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got Durin. I'd quite like to do that Durin's army.
I'd be so envious sat there watching you play the Dwarves. Yeah. I love the Dwarves.
I would like to do that. I feel like I'd maybe need to go back and... They're not terribly well played. So I suppose it doesn't really matter, does it?
No, it doesn't matter. I've seen all of your armies. Like they're more than respectful to your opponent in terms of quality.
Oh, yeah, they're perfectly reasonable. Yeah, it's nice to play with whatever you've done most recently, isn't it?
But
I'm not sure I'd want... I think I would be probably Serpent Hoarded out.
Because we're
going to doubles tournaments.
We're going to play them at any warm-ups we do, we're going to play them at Warhammer World, and then we're going to play 2 days of doubles.
I might play Fiefdoms. I'd quite like to get my Knights of Dolan Roth out. And I have got some
Have you got the dismounts?
No, that might be the problem.
Those Forge World dismounts, man.
Yeah, that's true. That might be a barrier. 45
quid, I think it is, for 6. Very expensive.
Yeah, I just use proxies. But what I did was I used Minas Tirith warriors that I chopped the arm off and gave them a Dolan Roth shield, and did it. That's how I did that. And I can always, I've got my blue stuff factory. I can always make you more Dolan Roth. Well, I think shields. I still have a few spare from the last round. So yeah, it's not Games Workshop official event. So I think we'd need to check it with the organizer, but I think that would be fine. Yeah, it's fairly clear what they are in the context, and it's not like you're just and I can turning jazz them up a bit more if that's what's required. So fiefdoms. Any other thoughts of ones? Yeah, so I guess armies that I've got and would be happy to play with would be Khazad-dûm, fiefdoms. I mean, Khazad-dûm's good, but it is a problem, the lack of mobility, I think, playing with just dwarves. Yeah, but I think you can solve... It doesn't solve it entirely, but I think a bolt thrower does help with that. Because you can reach out and touch the enemy from a very far distance and force them to come to you. That's true, yeah. Those dwarf bows, I think that's the way I always used to play dwarves, is that you pressure the enemy with good strength 3 dwarf bows and a bolt force them to come to you. Which is fine if you're in a straight battle, but if you need to dash for an objective, or the last game I played with dwarves was a game with you where you had to get to the other side of the board. Yeah. So I just knew I wasn't going to get there in time, so I had to just try and prevent you. And that proved to be quite difficult. That's true. Yeah, that's a problem. They are vulnerable in a few scenarios. So I'm not sure, but looking at what people are playing so far, I'm tempted to say either some form of Minas Tirith, Fiefdom's army, or possibly Khazad-dûm. Have you got any other suggestions? Yeah, because I thought you might play Minas Tirith, and looking on that, although actually a lot of my good Minas Tirith army is all proxy armies, so I don't think was Dead of Dunharrow a first choice. No, he wasn't. Dead of Dunharrow was a second choice. So that leaves Aragon open. I mean, if you want to save yourself some time on painting, I've seen a pretty decent list that is just Elisar Aragon on horse. I've got that model. And Gandalf on Shadowfax. Yeah, got that. A smattering of bowmen and a load of infantry. Yeah, and that works quite well. Yeah. And you can have 1 or 2 knights in there. I wouldn't know quite how to play it, I don't think. I've always found... Well, I've played a few games with Aragorn in the past, actually. It worked out okay. But I don't think I've played Gandalf and Aragorn together. I mean, Gandalf combined with Aragorn can deal with pretty much anything. Yes, I'm sure. I mean, there's 1 or 2 things like Sauron and the. Well, that's the other thing I did think. It would be nice if I could play Sauron. I have got Sauron. A load of orcs. And I've got a really nice army that's just Sauron and a load of orcs. I mean, I think Contest of Champions would be an auto win. Yeah, that would be cool. But again, you'd struggle with the mobility. I've got some orcs though. So. I don't know if you can use them in a Barad-dûr list. I'd need to check that. I think you can. Now, if you can, that would solve your mobility issues. Might be wrong. But... 650 points. How many points is Sauron? Do you recall? Oh, now you're asking. I think he might be about 400 points. I think he's 400. So that leaves you 250 to get. And he can have 18 in his warband. Yeah, that's right. So you'd probably be a 19 model force. Yeah, I think something like that. I think I've got about 800 points. And they're all painted in the same style with the same basing. Yeah, 250 points. Yeah, I think you could. In Fog of War, that would mean you're the assassination target and the assassin. Okay. Which, if you're not aware of what Fog of War is, for any of the listeners, it is where you have to select a hero on the other side that's not the leader as your assassination target, and then you need to select a hero on your side that's not your leader to protect. But obviously, if you've only got one hero, it's one and the same. So that also makes that quite interesting. But now I'm starting to think Sauron. I'll have a look. I'll have a look at the list, see if it works with what everyone else is doing. I mean, we're obviously not going to win. Yeah, I don't. So I just quite like to play you might as well, if you feel passionate about it, if you're excited by that project, then I would say do it. Well, it means I have to do no preparation because it's all the models are painted and I'd be pleased to put them on a table. So.
And you know how I feel about Mordor for life.
Yeah,
I love them. I'm quite excited about building a list for my Mordor.
Yes,
I mean, I've got Kardouche, the fire cooler. I don't even know if he's any good, but I got that on the made to order. I've wanted it for a long time. He's going to be in the list.
Excellent.
I have tried looking at, because I need to finish my Great Beast of Gorgoroth.
Oh, that's a wonderful model, isn't it?
It is, but he's just, for 650 points, he's an awkward pointed model to fit in. But yeah, I'll have another look at it. Yeah, I'm really excited for Ardacon. I think we're about early August, isn't it? So how many months away is that? Yeah, we're still about 3 months away.
Yeah,
roughly. But I am really hyped. I don't know if my heart can take the excitement for 3 months, but I'm really excited.
We're right at the end of May, so yeah, 2.5 months. Yeah, we'll get there pretty quick, I'm sure.
I mean, it's going to be great fun.
Yes, very good.
We shall have a few beers in Manchester.
Yeah, I'd be interested to meet a range of people playing, and I think it'll be a good mix of people there, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I
feel like Lord of the Rings attracts a better class of gamer. So
just bringing a bit of classes.
Yeah.
Gamers.
I just think people are. There's like different types, aren't there?
There are.
I think 40k, how complex it is, you just have to be really committed to play it. I think you have to be very into it to play that with any. Whereas I think Lord of the Rings, you can sort of dip in and out a bit more, maybe have a bit more other things going on that you're doing, and it still kind of works. So I think that's kind of what I mean, I suppose.
Okay. No, I wasn't. I knew you didn't mean it maliciously. But although I do have to say, I mentioned on the last podcast that I was going to the Horus Heresy / the only live Day of Games Day event at Warhammer World. Everyone was lovely. It was a really good vibe. Everyone was chatting. Everyone was really excited. I know it wasn't a playing event, and the tournaments, from what I've heard, they're not my thing. Then I don't think they're really your thing. Maybe doubles, maybe one day doubles because it's more relaxed. But I wouldn't go to a singles certainly. But yeah, it was a great vibe, and that has just got me. That's the first live Warhammer event I've been to for several years. I've been to Warhammer World quite a few times in the last year because I like going there.
Well, I haven't been since my 11th birthday, so I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we've been talking about it, haven't we? But yeah, it did get me really G'd up for live Warhammer events, whether it's Lord of the Rings or whatever. But obviously, Lord of the Rings is what's on the calendar for us. Okay, so I've got Ash here with me today, who is one of my friends that I, in the past, have played 40k with. And more recently, we've introduced him to the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. We're just going to start off by introducing him. Ash, say hello and introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name's Ash.
Yeah.
Been playing the hobby for about 2 years now. Started again in lockdown. Used to play it probably when I was 12 years old and then stopped. And then started again with 40k and now back into Lord of the Rings.
When you played as a kid, were you like quite into it, and was it just 40k then? Or
yeah, no, I played Lord of the Rings then too. If you remember the magazines that they used to bring in the films. Yeah, so that I was playing 40k first, and then those magazines came out, and really loved Lord of the Rings films, and got into those magazines, and then started collecting an army then, but had quite a long time away from the hobby and getting back into it now.
So the Peter Jackson films got you into Lord of the Rings then?
The books actually.
The books
books got me into it first. Yeah,
I
think I read them when I was about 8 years old. Read the book.
You read the Lord of the Rings at 8 years old?
Yeah.
You're smarter than you look, mate.
Yeah. I always remember at school, teachers would say, "Oh, he needs to read this book." And my mum would say, "Yeah, he's already read them years ago." So yeah, I was always into those sort of fantasy style books. And then got into the films, and then got into the hobby as part of me wanting to carry on playing different hobbies.
And then you sort of dropped it when you were a teenager, I'm guessing.
Yeah, dropped it when I was a teenager. Found beer and girls.
Yeah, when I was talking to Chris the other day, we were both sort of saying that that's why we dropped it. But we were a little bit older. I don't know what goes on in the north.
Yeah, filthy northerners up there.
Yeah, so that brings you all the way up to being an adult about 2 years ago. So we actually brought you back into it, or did you get into it a few years ago?
No, so what got me back into it was during the lockdowns, was bored, wanted something to do, so I built my own PC.
Mm-hmm.
And then got talking to Tom. He said talk to Sonny because he's quite into his games. So I talked to you and you introduced me to Armour.
Yeah.
And then as through Armour we were playing 40k.
Yeah.
So that got me back into the hobby as something extra to do during the lockdown.
So that was your first sort of entry into proper Warhammer lore then with 40k?
Yeah, since being a kid, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to have Ash involved, obviously because he's my friend that I play games with, but also because I thought he could bring a unique perspective because of this fact that although you did have an interest when you were a kid, which has been reignited, that you haven't you're coming into it with a fresh set of eyes more so than the rest of us. And especially with Lord of the Rings, I think you played your first Lord of the Rings game with me about 2 weeks ago, didn't you?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Fought the Battle of Plenar Fields and went from there.
Yeah, you've really taken up the idea and ran with it, haven't you?
Yeah. I like that you can have a big army for not a lot of money. You can paint them pretty quickly. The detail isn't as much as if you have to paint a 10-man squad of Space Marines. You could paint probably 15 orcs in the same time because you don't have to be as neat and as rough because the detail is a lot less obvious on the tabletop, that's for sure.
Yeah, the scale is slightly different, which allows you to use slightly easier techniques, slightly less levels of detail.
And the games are a lot quicker. Yeah, you can't play a 40k game on a weekday, whereas at the minute I don't have many weekends spare to play a full game of 40k, so it's good to keep playing the hobby at the same time.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to move on to, is like, what are the differences? Because I mean, we're not going to be a podcast where we're just slating 40k, but there are certain differences between the two games, and it's a well-known system, so we can't help but draw comparisons. So I know you have enjoyed the 40k games we've played, but yeah, what are the real differences you found between the two systems, and what more have you enjoyed specifically about the Lord of the Rings one?
Yeah, so obviously I love 40k still, but you can't play a 2,000 point army game in an evening, whereas with Lord of the Rings you can have probably as many people on the battlefield for around 600 points and still have a good game. And we had, 4 games when I first played?
Yeah.
In an evening and in about a couple of hours. So yeah, I really like that. And I like 40k's gone the same way now, where you've got the objectives and it's more of a strategy than knock the other person off the table. And I like it's quite even based. So in 40k there's a lot of sort of meta armies where it seems like Lord of the Rings isn't as meta. It seems a bit more even, and the game seems a bit less serious. It's a lot quicker flowing, so you don't have continuous rolling of dice as much. It's more like fast paced, get it done. A lot easier to remember all the rules in one. You're not having to constantly keep going back to the big rule book.
Yeah.
And not having to buy loads of different codexes to build your army and understand the rules behind the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've still got a few more things to introduce you to, and there are a couple of armies that can be built in a fairly nasty way. I'm specifically thinking of Angmar, which, Angmar was the kingdom that Sauron was hanging out in before he went back to Mordor, and they've got a few tricks. For instance, they can give all their troops terror. With the trolls, where you had to take a courage test to be able to charge them. They can effectively have that on all their models and stuff. So there are a few armies with a few tricks, but I definitely agree with what you've said there. So I think one of the important aspects that's sort of been on your little journey is how quick it was to teach you, really. I mean, like you say, we had that first evening. Tom is a more experienced wargamer, but he was also new to the system as well. And basically by the third game, I was just letting you two get on with it, wasn't I?
Yeah. And I like that fact. With 40k, you probably still don't know fully how to play it. I think you're probably in the same boat and you've been playing it a lot longer. It's just the constant questioning of rules, where it doesn't seem to have that in Lord of the Rings. And yeah, it's nice to just have a couple of games in one night.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that's definitely driving this for the group, is that we all had that hunger to play a few more games. And like you say, it's very difficult to fit in a 40k game. Whereas in the last few weeks since we've picked this up, we're pretty much meeting up on a weekly basis and getting 2 or 3 games in, aren't we?
Yeah, and that's what's good about it. You could probably play some kill team and things, but you get more models, so the game feels a bit more strategic.
Although I haven't played Kill Team recently, I've played it in older iterations. From my understanding, it is actually a slightly different rule set from 40k now, so they're not quite as aligned.
Okay.
Because did you play a couple of games of Battle Companies with us? I can't remember whether we
haven't done the Battle Companies yet, no.
But that's one thing we're thinking about doing, aren't we? But yeah, so I think that's enough of an intro of your background, where you're starting off, and the learning phases that you've had. Were any tips as like a complete beginner you would give someone starting out in Lord of the Rings? Like things that you wish you would realise straight away, or anything like that?
Probably pick an army you like from the films and spend your money building one army, so you've got a good army to be playing with, and not go and buy a box set. The box set is quite good, but it's quite limiting on what you can do with the army. I'd say download Battlescribe, build your army list, and then spend the money you were going to spend on a box set to build that army, so you can have a bit more of an enjoyable game.
That over-eagerness got you into buying straight away. You do often do that, don't you?
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Yeah, well, that's good advice. That's handy.
But I did buy the box set so that I could play with other friends who might not be into the hobby, because it's a good thing. Because the Lord of the Rings rules aren't as complex, it's quite easy. Just on a Friday night, you can have a quick board game instead of playing Monopoly. Play a bit of Lord of the Rings battle strategy.
Were we ever meeting up and playing Monopoly?
We wasn't, but I played Monopoly with the less inspired folk of the world.
I get what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't get too down on the models you've bought, because although I think you're just a bit disappointed that when you've put them on the tabletop, it's not quite a complete army. I think there are a few additions here and there. Like, I mean, the Rohan army, to be honest, that's not bad at all. Theoden and a bunch of riders will get you a long way. You've just got to build the horses. And then you'll see that that's actually quite a capable force, and you just really need to add in two or maybe 3 heroes, and then you've got a good Riders of Theoden list. So that's not bad at all. The Mordor list with just the Witch King and a load of Morannons, probably not the best. But again, with a few added in there, that's definitely a capable
I think if you add some bow guys in there, so you got that long range hitting as well.
Yeah, I think the armies, because so Tom currently, we're going to this in more detail when we speak to him, but he's playing basically with the Fellowship, because the Fellowship is what he's got, and he wanted to sort of stay low cost initially. So that's what he's been playing with, and playing the Witch King against the Breaking of the Fellowship with their resistant to magic stuff is not a good combination. I mean, you saw me play against that in the reverse, because I tried to show you how it might be done, and I had a good crack at it, but I still lost, didn't I? Because the magic's basically useless. But yeah, so that's a good summary of you starting off. What about your ambitions? So we've talked about you maybe wanting to do a tournament.
Yeah, I'd like to do maybe some small tournaments this year. Getting an army painted is going to be my problem, as the running joke in our group is that I can't paint any models. Yeah,
if Chris is the most prolific army painter I've ever met, Ash is the biggest procrastinator I've ever met in terms of painting. I think you suffer from the same thing I suffer, but to a more significant degree.
I think I have Warhammer ADHD. I can't concentrate on one army for too long, otherwise I get a bit itchy feet.
When you've got into it, you do actually paint reasonably well, and for a decent pace. Considering your experience, you paint really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you suffer a bit from the same with me, in that the hardest bit is sitting down and starting painting. Do you find that? I find when I sit down and I start painting, I'm just flowing and I can be there for hours. But sometimes I can be sitting on the sofa talking to myself for 45 minutes to convince myself to go and paint.
Yeah, and I think it's collecting all the paints you need. obviously my paint palette at the minute is very genre towards painting Dark Angels, which I just can't bring myself to paint.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just can't get over that painting hump with them. Whereas
you copied me and you did edge highlighting. You should have never done edge highlighting.
That took a long time, and then
beautiful and horrible.
I go through a stage of thinking, well, I don't want to do Dark Angels. I want to do another army. So yeah, that doesn't help. My pile of shame is definitely growing very big.
Yeah, I mean, my tip on that aspect is sort of where I've got my Raven Guard as my main force that I'm painting to my best of my ability in 40k. And then I started my second army, which was Death Guard. And when I did them, I said to myself, if I'm going to start a second army, I'm going to use speed painting techniques. And yeah, they're not low quality, but they take half the time of what the Raven Guard do. And I would say that with your Lord of the Rings as well. So obviously me and Chris are entering our Harridan in the doubles tournament. And I've said to myself, I'm just going to do base layers on everything. That's all I'm doing is base layers on everything. And once it's done, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do highlighting.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I've started to base coat my orcs. And then I'm going to just give them a simple wash so they look good on the table. And then once I've managed to get everything else done, come back and do my edge highlighting and make them look more realistic and more themed towards the films.
I think, if I was going to give you one tip on that is sit down with one model, paint it from start to finish, roughly figure out how long you've spent on it, and then decide whether you were happy. Those are the techniques that you're going to use. Doing a tester model has definitely saved me a lot of pain, and it's something that I've only really learnt in the last year, I would say, from repeatedly starting off an army, doing it, getting about half a dozen models done, and then being like, oh, I wish I had done this different, I wish I had done this different. Don't start an army and then figure out how you're going to fine tune it. Do a test model and figure it out straight away. Yeah,
I do tend to want to paint everything at once, all the same colours at one time, and then move on to the next. And then I've got to a point with like a troop choice, and I'm like, I don't actually like the way this looks. And then I know I'm like, my army looks a bit like a patchwork quilt because I've done all these different painting techniques.
Well, I know in the past I've sort of shown you, this is me batch painting. But sometimes if you're struggling for motivation, that's not always the best way to do things.
Yeah.
And I would give this advice to anyone. If you're really struggling with motivation, sometimes it's best just stick with one model, get them done. Stick with one model, get them done. Because if you've got the motivation and the drive to do batch painting, the amount of time you spend to get the army done will decrease. But if you're struggling for satisfaction, it's going to increase because it's monotonous, it's hard work, it's mentally draining. You'll stop and you'll walk away and you'll do something else. Whereas if you sit down with 1-2 models and just get them done, you're seeing the progress constantly because you're really focused and you'll actually get those models done. Rather than having like 10 part assembled models that maybe don't have their arms on or whatever, that are half done. You'll have 2 finished ones, and I think 2 finished is better than 10 part finished.
Yeah.
That's some good advice there. I think we've given people. So yeah. So what's next for you really? So you're round at my house because we're going to have some midweek games. Tom's coming round. We're going to have another practice game. I think we're going to do a 2-on-1. It's going to be the Fellowship and some Rohirrim. Well, not all of the Fellowship, some of the Fellowship and some Rohirrim versus a mixed force of Isengard. So that should be a good crack. You've not played against Isengard before, have you? So that's going to show you a few things. And I'm going to use Saruman. So yeah, there's going to be a few tricks in there. You can do sort of transfix, where you can make someone stick on the spot. And they can't fight as well as they normally do. He's also got Sorcerer's Blast, which is quite a nasty trick, especially against cavalry. So you have to look out for that. But yeah, I think if over the next month we can keep going with these practice games, you can keep painting. Yeah, maybe we could do your journey of your first ever tournament, which I think would be
a good lead off from this.
Yeah, I mean. A lot of the focus of everything is encouraging other people to take the leap, and I think you'd be a bit apprehensive, but I think you'd really enjoy it once you got there.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's nice to play against people outside of the group, and definitely good to build the group into something bigger. Yeah. Excited and looking forward to the journey. Hopefully I can paint models instead of walls in my house. So yeah.
Well, I mean, when we went, me and Chris went to the one day of the live event of Warhammer Fest at the weekend, I was reminded how friendly everybody is.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to some sort of trade shows and things for other things. You don't talk to anyone all day. I mean, I know I've been to you've been to lots of car events.
Yeah.
I've been to lots of bike events. I don't know about you, but I've been to plenty of them, and I've not spoken to anyone all day. Now and then you'll get someone that's a bit of a character that come over and chew your ear off. But at Warhammer Fest, people were talking to us left, right, and centre. Not in an obnoxious way, friendly way of, I'm looking at that model as well. What do you think of this?
Yeah.
But,
and being a nerd is the new cool, so.
It is, yeah. I mean, I do remember when I was a teenager, I was like, I've got to keep this on the down low.
Yeah.
Going in the woodwork shop to make Warhammer scenery with my mates after school, and we'd be like, is everyone left so we can go in there?
Hiding your carry case on the bus to school to play the school team.
I definitely used to hide things when I was at school.
And probably been like a 12-year-old kid in a shop full of men. It was an interesting weekend. I think my mum used it as a daycare centre. Drop me off at the Warhammer shop and leave me playing games and painting models.
Oh, I mean, if you were having fun, it's not the worst place to be left, is it?
Yeah.
But I think that's a good introduction, Ash. Thanks for being on the podcast, and you're definitely going to feature again.
Yeah, look forward to speaking to everyone again, and
we'll catch up with you probably in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, hopefully I stop getting wiped off the table and actually finish a game.
That's not true. I won't let. I need to correct the record there. Ash did beat me in his second game. It was very stacked against me. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say that it was an army I chose, but you did win that second game. So.
Yeah, with an army that I was given. Well, I almost beat Tom with another army that I was given.
We're going to teach you how to build an army, don't we?
Good episode for the podcast.
Yeah, we'll do some army building. I mean, I think that's going to be a bit of a learning experience for me as well, building competitive lists, because I've just really been... I normally just be like, oh, this model's cool. All right,
yeah.
But yeah, all right. Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Our next segment, Chris, which I'm starting to slowly form a structure, is news releases and a bit of discussion about the models and our scores.
Okay, great.
I don't think there's really any Lord of the Rings news this week, so that's quite a
well, I
brief
did
one.
see... I mean, there's obviously been this new release. Was it Defence of the North?
That's in releases. Yeah, so I'll bring the page up. So yeah, there has been a great amount of Lord of the Rings. I keep calling Lord of the Rings. I'm going to continue. I can't break that habit. Yeah, there's been the big new release, which is Defence of the North, which every man and his dog has been talking about, is aware of. I am actually quite excited for this release, because when I was a kid, back in the Wild West days, when you could make any army you wanted, what I used to run was I would run Warriors of Rohan, but I would use them as Warriors of Esgaroth. And I would use my Khazad-dûm dwarves, and my sort of self-made lore army was we were the combined forces of Erebor and Esgaroth. So to see, well, during the War of the Ring was how I played them, and now they are releasing Dale and War of the Ring era Erebor, which I think is awesome. Great period of the War of the Ring. It's not really explored during the films. I just think it's an excellent sort of idea of where they can go within the IP that they've got access to. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic to see more releases. I thought it was really nice to see the Khazad Guard released with all the different sculpts in one pack, because I think that's, for a long time, that's not been available, has it?
Certainly
not in the time I've been interested in the last 5 years. I don't think
there's only been the 3 models available.
Yes.
I'm lucky. I bought the Balin and his guard set when I was young, so I've always had these sculpts. But yeah, it's nice to see that available. But yeah, just before we move on to Defence of the North, I don't want to be too negative because I think this hobby is.
It's great that Games Workshop are giving it some love. So
definitely,
kind of whatever they come out with, that's great.
I give all of this a massive applaud, but I just want I'm not be too negative because I think this is a hobby and should be very positive. But I do have to comment on the price of the supplements of £32.50. One of the things I did was I just compared to sort of like, similar releases. So something most people will be aware of is Codex Space Marines. I'm sure they're sold an immense amount. That's also £32.50, but it's over 200 pages. Defense of the North is only just over 100. It's got 6 legendary legions, and it's got the battle company stuff in there. For instance, I think it's 3 battle companies.
Okay.
And I just think, like, say you're a battle companies player and you only want it for the battle companies.
I mean, I think that these supplements should be in the kind of £15 to £20.
I agree.
Ballpark, really. I always find it a wrench in this hobby to have to spend money on the rule books. So I'm maybe not the best person to ask. It always just annoys me. But
I just think that this is a massive barrier to entry to new players. I mean, I'm fortunate that I've got a reasonable budget for the hobby. And I know a lot of people have a lot slimmer budget. And I mean, it is great, fantastic they're bringing out content and they're supporting the hobby, and especially in this area of the lore that I'm really interested in. And I can only thank the guys that have produced this. Great work, loving it. But I just think somebody needs to start having a second look at some of the prices, especially on the rule books. I mean, the main rule book is much, much larger. It's £5 more. It doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense. And my other comment would be, if, like their other books, I don't know, it may not be, but if it's still being produced in China, well, if you're going to charge £32 for it, you might as well make it here. Ship it in.
That's very true, yeah.
So, because, if it was, I'd feel much better about paying the money, but that must be a massive markup.
It's got to be, it has to be. But it's great to see the new content. But that's the only point of negativity on this that I wanted to raise. It doesn't sit right for me, especially when it's so hard to get, the third-party retailer discount. There's 1 or 2 places, but they always sell out because it is so limited. So moving on, that's that small point.
That's our gripe for the week.
On to the other cool models, and I do need to sort of do a slight admission here because one of the things I complained about the releases in episode 1 was the fact that they were bringing out new models when there were armies that were so unsupported.
I did reflect on that because they've kind of as if they were listening.
I specifically highlighted Moria.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought of that.
And lo and behold, they've brought out the Dragon, they've brought out the Black Shield Warband, they've brought out, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that, but Goblin Shamans, Goblin Prowlers. Yeah, the whole range is supported again.
Well, I think that was about time. It's been a long time since you could. I did find myself dusting off a few Goblin models over the weekend and wondering whether now is the time. But I've got too many other different projects.
They're great. Yeah, I love them. Just the idea of a horde of goblins and their dragon, or a horde of goblins and the Balrog, or a super horde.
I like the dragon. I mean, I think I'm right in saying I did read someone. So I think it was a discussion on Facebook somewhere that I saw where they were talking about there's rules for a runish drake in this.
Yes, yeah.
And I was thinking, and someone was saying, perhaps they'll bring out a model for it. But I thought, there is the cave drake, and they brought out this dragon. So is the idea with the dragon that you play it with the Moria, or is it perhaps also there to serve?
I think you can ally it in with a few factions, but it's primarily for Moria, I believe.
Okay.
This is a bit of a grey area in our knowledge, but if it wasn't so obnoxious on the audio, I would applaud. I'm really, really happy. I don't have a Moria army. It's one of those things that's sort of on my list of, would be nice to have in hobby aspirations to have a massive Moria force. But I'm glad that's out there for other people. For the metal models, I mean, $47.50, that is quite a bit of money, but you do get 16 metal models for the Black Shield Warband. So yeah, expensive, but about in line with everything else. Khazad seems a little bit overpriced, being as most sort of 3 model metal blisters go for about 30, 36, but yeah. Not too much to complain. I think the Goblin Prowlers, 6 of them for 18 quid's not bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty cheap. Well, not cheap, wrong word, but you get what I mean.
I think they're all around £3 to £4, aren't they? And that's okay.
I just mean it's
These days.
I don't want to disrespect people's budgets. It is an expensive hobby, but in the scope of everything, that's a reasonable value.
Oh, well, yeah, you have to start any conversation off with this. It's all eye-wateringly expensive. So all the comments are relative, really, aren't they?
True, yeah. And I think everybody knows that as well. And then there's so once we're done with all of this, I want to do an Easterling force. So
I've been thinking about that. Yeah. I'm sure everyone else is as well.
Yeah.
It does feel like the time, doesn't it?
So I'm quite happy to see those Easterling mounted commanders, the Dragon Knight and the Shaman making a return. That's awesome. I did have because I thought there was apparently an article that misworded and suggested these were all made to order, which they've then taken down. But I was a little panicked when I was like, oh, mounted commanders have gone out of stock. How can it be? It's still made to order, but they're a full return. So yeah, that's great, really. The Captains of Erebor. Have you seen these up close, Chris? I know they're an old sculpt, so it is something that they've had carried over.
Oh yeah, okay, great. I like the guy on the right. I'm not sure about the guy on the left.
I think they're both decent poses. Maybe it's just the way they're painted, but the faces leave a bit to be desired in my eyes.
That can sometimes happen on. I don't know if it's the way they've painted them or the face against the white, but yeah, hard to say. I do really like the pose of the one holding a hammer down.
The Grim Hammer, yeah.
He's less keen on the other one, I think.
Cool to see those back as well. And then we've got the Lake Town Captains. Lake Town's not really my cup of tea, but I know it's quite popular with people out there, so that's also good to see back.
They're silly hats. They look like they should be in Narnia, don't they?
Yeah, I wasn't going to be so on the nose, but yeah. I guess we have Peter Jackson to thank for that, but the aesthetics
Peter.
The aesthetics. These aren't how I imagine the Esgaroth Warriors. I'll put it that way. But yeah, they are what they are. I hope people enjoy them as well.
It's good because if you pick a bunch of flowers, there's always a vase on one of their heads that you can put them in. So.
Just baiting now, Chris. He's getting the old fishing rod out. You're trying to get more mail for us, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm just trying to generate that correspondence.
Chris is too opinionated.
Tell him to pipe down.
And then we've got the Goblin Kings. I've got one of them already, but yeah, I like that one on the rock. He's cool.
I've got the guy on the rock. That's really good.
Again, this is.
I think he's the king, isn't he? The king of the.
I think they're
goblins.
both kings. I've got him.
No, I think he's like a captain, and then the one on the rock.
With the crown.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have. I can't pronounce it. Durbaz. I've got him. I got him in the old D'Agostini magazines years ago. Yeah. And then it's a shame there's only one of them, one pose, but one of my favourite models ever, which I believe came out in sort of the period we weren't playing, which is the Warg Marauder.
That's a very fun model, isn't it?
I love
multiple goblins.
I mean, it's a shame if you want to play a few of them, you've got to have that exact same pose, but as a one-off model, awesome. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, the eye on that Warg is a little bit suspect, but everything else is perfect.
Yeah, possibly.
I just love the idea of like 3 blooming goblins cramming onto a little Warg and going at it. Great.
So, thumbs up to Games Workshop, good releases and good customer service, as referred to earlier in the podcast.
Yeah. Okay then. So just wrapping up the podcast there. Thank you if you've made it this far through. I think this is going to be a little bit of a longer one compared to last week, but I think that's just because we're feeling a bit more relaxed. We're getting a bit more into it. We've tried a bit of a structure today, so hopefully that's worked well. If you do want to contact us, as I said earlier, we've got the Middle-earth In Mercia at gmail.com, and please like the Facebook page. That's where we're primarily going to be communicating with people publicly as opposed to the email address. Chris, have you got any closing out comments?
Yeah, no, thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this second episode, and hope we haven't bored you. I suppose we haven't if you've made it this far. Well done.
Gold star unlocked. All right. Cheers, everyone. Thank you and goodbye.
Take care.